time to go hard or go home. One way up, no way out. I give it all for the family. We stay up, no bailouts. Give it all.
Hey, Sir Fix-a-Lot here. I'm going to show you how to change motor mounts in a 2008 Porsche 911S or 997S. This is very similar to 996s also. What I chose were the Semi Solid mounts from WEVO. These can be ordered directly from WEVO or can be purchased from some of their partners like Terret Engineering. These units are very nice. They are semi-solid, so they're going to transmit a little bit more vibration into the cabin, but they're going to improve shifting performance, and it's also going to probably decrease the notchiness that you feel in your transmission, because the engine sags with the old the original OEM motor mounts, and it tends to kind of shift around when you're making turns. So shifting while coming out of turns, especially on track, as well as just notchiness that you feel with the transmission tends to go away when you have these motor mounts installed. Again, a little bit more cabin vibration, maybe a little bit more noise, but it's worth the trade-off. So there's basically two mounting points here up top. These are torqued at about 18 pound-feet, and then there's the bottom piece down here, which is an 18 millimeter bolt, and it's very important that you have a socket, 18 millimeter socket, a deep one, in order to get up there to loosen it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, hope this is not too hard to see. This is the left motor mount, and you can see there's two bolts right here and here that you're going to have to remove. But before you do that, working from underneath the car, I'm going to bring the new one in here, and this thing basically drops straight in, and you have a locator. This is a kind of a square I guess end up here that drops into the top of the rear engine mount. There's a kind of a square receptor at the very top, and so this drops right into it, and you'll see when I remove this motor mount, there'll be a square receptor that this will drop back into in order to locate it properly. But what you want to do from underneath is there is an 18 millimeter nut that bolts onto this. The motor mount is about this wide, and then it mounts onto the bottom of that, and so you have to get that undone first. The other thing we need to do is remove the airbox completely, because the right motor mount is not accessible unless you remove this airbox. So going to be loosening the clamp here to the throttle body, this one, and then disconnecting a couple of connections here. One to the MAF meter, mass airflow meter. There's a kind of a cable here that needs to be unclipped, and then finally there's the solenoid. I apologize for moving this around, but there's a solenoid back here that also has to be disconnected. You just squeeze on the metal clip, and then you should be able to pop that right out. So this is the airbox almost rotated out. You're pushing it to the left and then rotating it up. You can see I've disconnected the hose to the throttle body. The areas of importance are actually back here. I've disconnected the MAF sensor here, and then there's this solenoid where you have to disconnect this hose off the bottom. It's kind of a little hose. It gets connected to the bottom of the solenoid. You'll hear air escaping out of that because it's under vacuum. You have to disconnect this clamp here as well as a clamp down here. and then you should be able to rotate the entire box out. I used a 5-inch extension and attached to the 18mm 6-point and the wrench, and I was able to loosen and then remove the nut from the bottom of the rear engine carrier. You can see that it is a nut that contains the washer already, so it's kind of washerless. It's not nylock, and it didn't have any Loctite on it at all. So as long as it's torqued to 60 pound-feet per spec, you should be fine. So we're going to drop in the WEVO mounts from the top, and then this will go back and attach from the bottom. Here's a quick look comparison between the stock mount and the WEVO mount. Probably half the weight, but not that important in the grand scheme of things. But you can see that both of them have that same square kind of key at the base, and so that's what's going to fall into the top of the engine carrier. Here's the left top of the engine carrier right here. You can see it's got that square hole. That's going to line up with this base piece right here. So when you drop it in, you'll want to orient it such that when it rotates, it just kind of locks in. So it's now dropped into that spot. You may have to force this just a little bit in order to get things to line up as far as the holes are for the 13mm screws. Again, 18 pound-feet here for these two, and 60 for the one at the bottom. And then you install the airbox back in reverse order, and you should be good to go. One other note as you're assembling this, make sure you get these threaded and started first, and then get the bottom bolt, the bigger one here, underneath, threaded also, and then go around in a rotational mode. Tighten these a little bit, then go to the bottom, tighten that up a little bit, and then the other side also. So that you're kind of going in a rotating mode so that it doesn't stress out one component versus the other side, because it's still trying to find its new home. Let's say the engine is basically trying to find its new home, and you might have to play with the jack that's underneath the engine a little bit in order to get these threaded properly. But once you do, then you can basically raise the jack back up to its original location where the wheels aren't off the ground, but it's lifting the engine all the way up to the limit of this plate right here. And then go ahead and get these tightened up again in a rotational fashion. Then remove the jack, and you should be ready to go.